I am Nick Nitro. I am the owner of Apple City Championship Wrestling. I see these guys on TV and they're crotch chopping and they're yelling, "Suck it." And so I run down the hallway as fast as I can. And my mom's in the living room sitting on the couch and she's watching TV and I'm just crotch chopping and yelling, "Suck it." And she beats my ass. These are people. They're not performers. They're not show animals. These are real people with real life problems outside of wrestling. This is, wrestling for wrestlers by wrestlers. Like that was always like the first thing. And then the second thing was, well, this is going to cost a lot of fucking money.
What's up, guys? Lift and Love. Lift and Love here. Where did you pull this question from? Lift Love, crochet, we out. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Lifting Love podcast. You are awesome, and today we have an amazing episode right here before, this is the fourth event of the year happening tonight? Fourth event. The fourth event at Apple City Championship Wrestling. Who better to talk to than the man, one of the men himself? It's Nick Nitro with Apple City Championship Wrestling. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for being patient. I know I was difficult to get this scheduled with, but I appreciate you coming out to the Brookford Town Hall and us nailing this down.
I mean, I kind of expected it day of the event. A lot of stuff happening. Like, we'll get to it here in a minute because I know there's a million things that you're going through right now. Stories, characters, making sure people who get here on time, like a whole bunch of different stuff in your head. But let's start right basic. Who are you and what do you do?
I am Nick Nitro. I am the owner of Apple City Championship Wrestling. The company was founded in Alexander County, but now we're spreading out and we're running events in Catawba County as well, here at the Brookford Town Hall.
Which is an incredible venue. Sick venue. Because I've only seen at, what's the name of the other? Hidden Night.
Yeah.
You come in here and it's like, you could fit 2 Hidden Nights in here.
Yeah, it's a totally different atmosphere. The Hidden Night Center will always be home, but this gives us additional floor space for growth, and it's in a great location.
For sure. So let's journey back. Wrestling is such a huge part of a lot of people's lives. I know for me specifically, and we've had this conversation as early as I can remember. What is the first memory that you have of wrestling?
So my first memory of wrestling is not as early on as some people. I'm sitting on my bed flipping through channels and I see these guys on TV and they're crotch chopping and they're yelling, "Suck it." And so I run down the hallway as fast as I can. And my mom's in the living room sitting on the couch and she's watching TV and I'm just crotch chopping and yelling, "Suck it." And she beats my ass all the way back to my bedroom. And then we start watching Monday Night Raw every Monday after that.
Hey, Mom, suck it.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I was innocent. So
it's funny, like thinking of it now, like they also didn't have a clue. They were kind of just throwing crap at the wall to see if it would stick, and it stuck for a whole generation. Was it at that moment? Like when was the moment that? Because you also have wrestled, and we're gonna get to that. What was that like? When was that moment of like? It went from just being a TV show that you watched to being like, this is what I want to do.
See, myself, like many others, didn't really have a whole lot of information that wrestling outside of what you see on TV exists. So my uncles actually performed for a company up in Lenoir, and that's when I found out that independent wrestling existed and that was a local thing. And I was probably around 13 when they were working for that company in Lenoir. So I would go to them at trainings and events that they were doing, and then I started to grow that love for, I can do this.
And how old were you about then?
I was around 13 then. So then at the age of 16, it was 2006, I started training for a company in Lincoln, North Carolina. My dad had to come in, sign a waiver and everything. You know what I'm saying? With this company, see me doing some stuff, and they were like, "Hey, how old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 16." And they were like, "Well, you think your dad would sign a waiver and let you trade? And I'm like, I mean, he already knows that I'm doing it. So I'm sure, around professionals in a professional environment that he would be more acceptable to that. So he did. And then I started training and started wrestling less than a year later.
What was that journey like? Because I know you see it on TV, and it's this big spectacle. It's a lot of athleticism. There's story. There's a lot. But at the bare basic, it is one person versus one person, and you're kind of looking at this thing that is massive. But on television, you're looking at this screen. It's like, oh, it's just simple. It's one guy versus another. But there's so many layers to wrestling. When you first started, did you just go, oh, I'm just going to fight someone and call it a day?
Well, when I first got into it, the place where I trained was very old school. So it was the basic fundamentals of what was necessary to do this.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned there. And then through watching guys that I I was able to work and train and craft, something a little bit more different, more towards what I was wanting to do.
And we were talking a little right before we got on. Nick Nitro is not your actual name.
Nick Nitro is not.
How did the name Nick Nitro come about? Was that early on, or did you have multiple iterations of your name?
Yeah. So later, after I had been wrestling for a while, Johnny Nitro was actually Johnny Nitro, and it's a common misconception that I got my name from him when actually I got Nick Nitro from one of the Small Soldier characters.
What?
The small soldier that has the cigar and is always blowing shit up. His name is Nick Nitro. Yeah. There's a little insight.
That's a little Lifting Love exclusive here.
Yeah.
So you're 16. Let's go back to 16. You're 16 years old, wrestling, having waiver signed. When was your first match? Do you remember your first match?
I don't remember the date. I do have the video footage.
Whoa.
I started refereeing for the company for a while, and then I wrestled a couple of matches under a hood, and that was finally myself, probably around 17.
What did that feel like? Now, obviously, people probably didn't know you at the time. Compared to if you went out now at one of these shows, you know what I mean?
Right.
You get a massive reaction anytime you come out. But then probably not a lot of people knew you, but still just that cheer, that presence of just finally being out there performing must have felt incredible at 17.
Yeah, it was night and day from performing under the hood. The couple of matches that I had prior wearing the mask, you feel like there's something to hide behind.
Yeah.
So then when I had my first match as myself, those layers were removed and there was nothing to hide behind anymore. So it was a whole different level of nervousness compared to the previous matches that I already had, even though everything that needed to happen was the same. That layer wasn't there anymore to hide behind.
What was that first pop like? You remember it just coming out? You're nervous going into it because now you're not doing the mask, but you just walk out and you're just like, oh my goodness. Whether it's a room of 5 people or 5,000 people, it must have still just felt awesome to finally be yourself and do it.
Interestingly enough, I had a lot of family and friends attend the shows, so they all showed their support for me, and it was great. And that first match actually took place in this building.
Whoa!
In this building.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
And now you're back doing a promotion here.
Yeah.
That's incredible. We're going to get to the promotion in a little bit. We're going to talk about ACCW. So where does your independent career go from there? 16, 17, you're reffing, you're doing under the mask, and you finally come out on your own at 17. Where does that journey lead after?
So that journey leads to a lot of places. It leads to burning bridges with people, and you got to take into account, whenever I came into this, I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
You're a kid at 16 years old. You know what I mean?
You think you know a lot at 16 years old.
You're a kid at 16 years old. So I had a lot of life to learn, and then I'm in an environment where I'm working around grown men on a daily basis. Some of which just based off of the style that I leaned towards and the environments that I was with, I rubbed a lot of people wrong. It took a long time to clean up my name, to be someone who people wouldn't just bash or run into the ground, because I came into this game early and I was a disruptor.
Do you think that it helped you or hurt you that you came into the game early?
In a sense, it helped. There are probably different ways that I could have went about it, and I could have had maybe a stronger support team around that I didn't have. That probably would have been like, hey, don't say that or don't do that, But that wasn't there for me, so I just had to live and learn, and that's okay. That's how we all grow.
Yeah, I feel like there's like so like for me, I different industry, but my dad had his own business, and I was from 12 to the time I grew up, and I was always in that business, but same concept. I was around grown men all the time, and I made a lot of mistakes. I said a lot of the wrong things, thought I knew kind of everything, and then you kind of get humbled and brought back. When was the moment? Because I feel like everybody has it, whether you work a regular job or you're in this profession, this kind of line of work. When was that moment where like things clicked? You had like the light bulb moment of like, probably not right away, but once you got older and you were like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done some of these things. Like, when did things kind of really just click, and then you were able to pick up the pieces and kind of be better and bigger and better and stronger down the line?
Yeah, so my light bulb moment, I can't provide you with the exact years. It was a very
We're gonna go a rough estimate on years here. No.
there were struggling times at that point, but as far as the wrestling itself and how things were going, I was working with Rob Killjoy a lot, and I would go to his house and we would wrestle like Thursday to Sunday for all these different companies, and sometimes 2 shows a day. And Rob Killjoy just has, in my opinion, and a lot of folks' opinion, the best mind for professional wrestling in the Carolinas. He just breaks everything down and makes it simple to understand, and he's a make it make sense guy. And so when I got around him and I started working with a guy that has that mindset, then just everything started to click and come to me, and it was much easier to adapt to certain environments and situations, and dealing with people was all easier.
And around how old were you at that point?
I would say I'm probably 19 or 20 when Rob and I first met each other. Yeah.
And I feel like the years in professional wrestling are, it might be in life it's 1 year, but in professional wrestling, the amount
dog years.
Yeah, literally, literally, one match, is a week, is a month of learning, because and a lot on the independent scene, you have guys who do. I mean, you could do 5-10 matches a week, especially when you're young and your body doesn't hurt as much, when you just have that love for it, and you're just like, you're so green, you just want to get in. So like all those, like, it might have been only 2, 3, 4 years from that first moment in wrestling.
Yeah, but that was a long time.
That's like 10 years, 15 years of growing.
It was a long time, yeah.
So let's keep going. Let's go along the storyline here. Now you're in your 20s. What does wrestling look like? What's the difference between it in your 20s than when it was when you first started?
Wrestling in my 20s looks much different. I'm breaking out. I'm exploring new states, new companies, a lot of new competitors, things that I hadn't done in my past, where like I was kind of secluded to just this one company for so long.
Yeah.
So then when I started to break those chains and get out, and the more different people that you wrestle, and the people that you wrestle that are better than you, that's how you grow. That's how you learn. You're going to be stagnant in your career if you're always surrounded by people that are not as skilled as you or less skilled than you. That's just how it is.
Yeah. I feel like those are probably your favorite people to wrestle, not only because they're better than you, but it's like those people who are better than you probably have a bigger name, they have a bigger draw, so you get to kind of show that audience of theirs, hey, I know you have your guy, he's going to be your guy, but I'm here too. Right. And it kind of is also more of like, in a sense, at least in my mind, and I don't know how you think, I would love to hear your opinion, kind of like a challenge, where it's like you have this guy who's better than me, who's probably might be a bigger star than me, bigger draw than me, but you get the opportunity to show, because, I mean, really wrestling is, and I want to talk a little bit about wrestling too in here in a minute, it's really a team sport. As much as an individual, like, you are out there to put on a show together, right? So that must have been fun to just have that challenge of like, I'm going up against these bigger, better guys, but now it's an opportunity for me to shine as well.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. You know, anytime that you're in there with someone that's better than you, then you push yourself.
Yeah.
You push yourself a little more. They push you more. Because when you're working around the same group of people or people that are on your level or below, you hit that limit and you get used to each other and it's a comfort zone. Well, then when you start wrestling people that are better than you, then you got to break past that limit and find a new comfort zone. And then you just keep on stretching beyond that.
I am going to say for the edit, this keeps falling down a little bit.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So we just got to.
He's going to take this out. Take two.
No. You know what?
This will not be a part of the show. I just want y'all to know. These are new, by the way. This is the first time he's ever used them.
Brand new. Say, sorry, we're back. And we could even
Get this.
There we go. That's
There we
perfect.
go. Look, fantastic.
So, like we never left. When I was younger, I think for me, watching wrestling and knowing wrestling were two very different things. I watched wrestling. I was obsessed. I still let my wife my wife watches with me sometimes, and you know I watch every Monday, I watch every Friday, I watch every PLE, almost to the same point now that I was when I was a kid. But then I just watched. Now I know, right? There's the showmanship behind it, the real peanut butter and jelly, if you will, like the real guts of it. When did you learn that side? Because I feel like that is everything that's about to happen tonight. That is what brings everything together.
Yeah, so I think, I wrestled in ring for 17 years.
Wow.
And through the course of those 17 years, and seeing different companies and how they ran, and seeing some companies pop up, it's tax season, and then they're gone in a couple of months. And, I kind of was able to see, like, good promoting, bad promoting, and the back end of that from a wrestler standpoint. And I'm a very observant person. So, like, even when I wasn't saying a whole lot, I was watching everything. So I think that helped me in this transition of where we are today.
Yeah.
Experiencing those different companies and how they operated and functioned, and just being very observant to what was going on around me.
Do you think if you would have, like, knowing now what you know then, like if you talk to yourself, let's say year 10 or 12, talking to yourself then, ever think that you would have a wrestling promotion? Ever think that you would not be wrestling? Like, did you ever see like the end in sight?
No, younger me, it was bigger dreams, making it on your own. I do think that at a certain point, I had some back injuries. And then I had a motorcycle accident. And then I had some work done, and then everything was fine. So there was a transitional period within the company where it was the right time for me to step out of the ring and do this side of things, because my back was in good enough shape to where I could do it. I didn't want to put my body through an extensive amount of harm after the things that had happened, in a manner where it would affect my quality of life outside of wrestling. I have a son. He's getting bigger, but I want to be active with him and my wife. So you just had to kind of like lay your priorities out and be like, I can drive my body into the ground until I'm hunched over like Stu Hart, or I can bow out, and I can do it my way with my best friend.
Yeah.
And then I can transition into this role. And it was just right time, right place kind of thing.
So, not that we're not going to spend too much time on the injuries, but what exactly did happen back-wise?
So I had an injury that was work-related.
So like not even like wrestling related?
No. It wasn't wrestling related. This was outside of wrestling, because, as you know, most wrestlers that you see on the indie scene, they have real jobs that they go to, and they work real jobs, and then they perform for you during the weekends. So at my job, I was picking up some boxes, and they were really heavy, and I had to get them up over my shoulders. And I'm a shorter guy; my statue's not too large, so I heard a loud crunch, and the next morning I couldn't even. I had to roll my feet out of the bed and then walk up with my hands to get straight.
Oh my goodness.
So then I go to a chiropractor, and then I'm seeing a chiropractor for the next 3 months, 3 days a week. And he got me straightened out. And all of that was taken care of. And even later, we're talking just, almost a little over 2 years ago, I had a motorcycle accident. And some of the stuff that was said to be permanent damage from the first injury, that, things that I would just have to work out, during those x-rays had looked much better.
Oh, wow.
There were new injuries from the motorcycle accident, but the old injuries looked to be doing much better.
So it's not like you got into the motorcycle accident and it extended and
Correct.
furthered the injuries that you already had.
Correct, yeah. So the old injuries that were set to be, permanent and longer lasting, were looking to be healing up really good. There was going to be a time period where we had to work on everything from the motorcycle accident, but that was all going to be able to work out, and I was going to be back to 100%. So then when all of that was put in perspective, and I was just like, we took 2 rides on this, and we had 2 back injuries, and we can come out of this solid. And then the timing of what was going on with the company at the time, it was just like, yeah, this is perfect. We'll wrap this up. We'll go out on our own terms, and then we'll take the next chapter. So
you were able to go out on your own terms, where like most people kind of go until they literally physically can't anymore.
yeah.
So let me ask you this: do you feel, if called upon, if the right situation happened and it was a big enough draw for ACCW, would Nick Nitro step back in the ring?
Right time, right place, anything's possible, especially in this world. The truth is, I work with such phenomenal talent that my presence isn't needed on the show. And I do that on purpose because the whole reason, this is wrestling for wrestlers by a wrestler. I've seen their struggles. I know what they go through. Yeah. So I put a lot of investment into this company as far as like making sure that the ring is safe, making sure the ropes don't snap when they hit them, making sure that they have a good, safe, quality place where they can come wrestle. I think about the wrestlers more than probably most companies do, just because I was in his and her boots. I know what they struggle. I know what they deal with inside of the ring and mentally. There's a lot of things that, people don't talk about, but, wrestlers deal with a lot of mental stress and stuff and anxieties where, whether it's they're not being promoted the way that they think they should be promoted, or they're not winning this championship or that championship, or the direction of their career. So here we have open dialogue. I have conversations with them, and we talk just like friends, just like we're talking right here. And I hear them out, and I hear their concerns, and we work on how we can fix that.
And how is that compared to most of the other places that you yourself, from personal experience, have worked with? More of like a me, like this is my show type of mindset. How is it different?
And that's exactly how it is in a lot of places. In a lot of places, owners of promotions like to think that they're bigger than they are. You're no Vince McMahon. I don't care who you are. You're no Triple H. You're not that. You're running an indie company. But oftentimes, they like to get a little bit bigger for their pants, and they think that it's their show and it's all about them, and they don't think about the performers that put their bodies on the line to produce that show.
And if you had to just put in a number, obviously I don't know how many different promotions you think you've worked with or for in your 17 years of wrestling?
It would be difficult to put a number. I used to have a gear bag that it was one of my first gear bags, and I wrote the initials of every promotion that I had worked on it with a Sharpie all over it. I would say probably around 40 or above that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're definitely someone who has not only the expertise of 17 years of wrestling, but you also have seen all different types of leadership. I can only imagine. You've probably seen the Vince McMahon's as far as mindset goes, where it's like me, or I have the best idea. And you've also seen the people who are similar to you in the aspect of this is a show, we're putting it on together.
Right.
And I feel like you're definitely like more like that. I see you interact with the talent. It's unbelievable because like in most cases you don't think that people who are running it, who are paying for all the stuff that goes into it, would have these genuine relationships with these people. Because I feel like when you talk to them, half of the stuff you talk about isn't even wrestling. It's like, hey, how are you? Like, you doing good? Family's good?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's like, we got a show tonight, and you're not even like talking about anything wrestling. It's like, what?
No, we're not. We're talking about life. We're talking about real life. I want to make sure that they're in a good headspace. I want to make sure everything's good with them at home. The show's going to be fantastic, and they know that, and I know that. So, yeah, anytime I'm checking up on them, I'm just making sure that they're good.
So let's real quick before we talk about ACCW, as we're talking about it, 17 years of wrestling. Do you have a favorite match or a favorite moment of your career? I know you're good at highlighting other people. You're good at talking about other people. What's your favorite or best match / moment of your career?
I have a couple actually. So one of my favorite moments would be when Darren and I were tag teaming, and we wrestled at the Landmark Arena in Georgia.
Wow.
And that to me was such a moment just because, that's the same venue that AJ Styles, came up in and many others. So just working under those lights and in that venue was a huge moment to me. Match-wise, I've had several great matches with Rob Killjoy, but, the series of matches that I had with Thomas Extreme that led to me being out of the ring is probably my favorite. Like, I really feel like the way that was structured and the creativity that we had put on that we were allowed to put on that, really gave me a good stamp on the way out. Like, a lot of people don't get to plan how they're going to stop wrestling. A lot of times it happens due to an injury, or they take a new job that doesn't allow them to do it, or whatever, So just having the ability to have full control of like how this is going to go and play out was more than I could ask for.
And then so jumping right into Apple City Championship Wrestling, if you could talk a little bit about when it first got started, like what was your initial thought coming into it? Was it always meant to be, hey, this is going to be a wrestler's first type of company? Like, what was, like, you sit down and you're thinking of what this is all going to be at the end of the day. Like, what are you even thinking as you're coming up with this idea and eventually actually launch it?
So, yeah, I mean, always, like, from the beginning, wrestling for wrestlers by wrestlers, like that was always like the first thing. And then the second thing was, well, this is going to cost a lot of fucking money. Because it does. And if anybody tells you that it don't, they're lying to you. Especially whenever you're trying to produce the kind of quality of events that we're putting on. And I'm talking about from the production setup to the talent that we work with. This is not a cheap gig. I knew that, coming into this line of work that it was going to be costly to get things running the way that I wanted them, because my vision was bigger than where we were currently at. It needed to grow. I knew we were looking at like 3 years of major expense to get to a place where things started to turn around. The things changed really quick. I would say within the first year, we were being contacted and sought out and receiving praise from people that I look up to in this industry. I personally received messages from guys that I think run the best wrestling company in North Carolina, giving me props on what's happening here. And that's winning.
I think one of the coolest things about this, and again, this is me personally. Just I'm outsider looking in. I'm a mark. Is that the term?
That's the internet term.
And I appreciate you guys letting me into the inner circle. But it's so cool to see not only the relationships that you have with the wrestlers, but the relationships that the wrestlers have with the fans. whether they love them or hate them, the relationship is unbelievable. The respect that they have for each other, the and enjoyment that the fans get out of the crowd and the crowd gets out of the wrestlers. Like it's awesome. Like literally when I tell people about Apple City Championship Wrestling, I'm like, look, the one place that we went to at Hit Night, there's only 100 and something people in there. It feels like you're in a stadium of 10,000.
Yeah.
You know, especially when there's a couple people that come out, there's a great moment, or where they're chanting, like it's unbelievable. How did that come about? Like when you start, like, is it, oh, I want to work with X, Y, and Z wrestlers, and hey, like how are you promoting it to get good fans? Because I think that's a thing that's probably not talked about enough, is fans are having good fans that respect the craft, that respect the wrestlers. That's a huge part, but also having wrestlers who also are top tier professionals is another. And I can only imagine when you first started how hard was that to find those?
Well, so given the fact that I was in the industry for 17 years, I was surrounded by a lot of these people. I watched them come up. I know where, some of the best training facilities, probably on the entire East Coast, we have here. And so I was working with some of those training facilities, getting their new students, getting some students that had already graduated from those training facilities, and then some guys who had been in the business for several years, and girls that had been in the business for several years that could work with these people as they came out of the training academies.
Like how do you scout that? Like that to me is like, so you have this bare bones company, right? That you have this vision for what it could be, and you have to find the talent, find the fans. I mean, most people, it's one or the other, right? You find the people you work with when you're building a business, or like if you offer services, you're looking for the customer, and you have the thing that they want. Here, you have to do both.
Oh yeah, so I admire good work, and so I study people. Even before bringing them here, I study them, and then after they're here, I still study them, and then I'll send them a message after their match, and I'll be like, "Hey, this was great. We need to work on this, but this was great," So, yeah, I'm at the heart of it all. I'm a fan of this just as much as anyone else. You know what I mean? I love wrestling. So I've watched a lot of these men and women who are performing here tonight and have performed for us in the past, and I've studied their footage, and that's how I gauge, is this person entertaining? Will they work with our audience? Because I kind of know what our fan base wants now, and how to hit those certain, like going back to what you were saying, of the connection between the wrestler and the crowd. These men and women know how to toy with emotions the right way. So whether you hate them or you love them, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
And I got to say, one of the things I admire about you the most is how hard of a worker you are. And you're probably the person I've never heard you complain once. Granted, I haven't known you that long, but you could be so much more pessimistic about this industry. But I come here today and you're running around, you're doing this. Hey, we got a problem, but I'm gonna fix it, and we'll get on to that interview. This, that, and the third. Like, where does that work ethic come from? Does that come from in the ring, or did that come from like seeing promoters and actually becoming a promoter yourself?
No, man, I think that was just something that was instilled in me on kind of like my upbringing. If there's a problem, we solve it, and we're on to the next thing. So. Yeah, likewise in wrestling, sometimes you're faced with like cancellations and things like that occur on your event, and maybe you've already put out a poster and you've already you've done all your match announcements, and all of that's already been public, and now this talent is injured or gets called into work or is sick or whatever, and can't make the event. So now you gotta go into recovery mode, and you've got to find an opponent that is equal of a caliber of opponent as the one that you had scheduled, or better.
For you, is it just like a big old puzzle? Like, is it just like, I mean, because obviously there's a lot of an adrenaline dump that you get as a wrestler. You come out, the crowd pops. My fans are here, they're watching me. You make a crazy move, or you plan a move and it goes perfectly executed. There's a lot of moments as a wrestler that you get these adrenaline dumps. I only can imagine how you feel as a promoter when things go smooth. Like the last event, this is a funny thing. At the last event, I come back at the end, and you're like, and you have this big smile on your face, and you go, "That was the shit, wasn't it? That was so fucking good." And I was just like, the genuine excitement you get from just everything going perfect. So like, did that translate as from a wrestler to a promoter? Like, did you think it was going to? And then when it happened, like, how did it feel?
Yeah, so like in the beginning of things, like I wasn't really sure because there is like a level of a rush or a high or whatever that as a performer you feel when your match goes flawlessly and everything was perfect and everybody's safe. We hit everything we were supposed to do, and the crowd reacted exactly like we expected them to. And then you get like your body just feels a certain way, and it's a rush. So I wasn't really sure how that was going to transition into this side of things, but I can tell you this from experience. So when I wrestled, and I would get that feeling, I would go back home and I would watch my match several times, and I would still find something I didn't like about it. Even though I felt that way, I would find the smallest thing that I didn't like about it, so that next time I didn't do that. But now, I get that same feeling. I go home and I watch the entire show back. The whole show, everybody's match. I'll write down notes on things they did well, things they need to improve on, and then I'll write these people. And I'll tell them, like, hey, this was fantastic. We need to work on this. And, they're always open to that feedback because of the way I approach it. I'm talking to them like people, you said earlier. Yeah. I'm talking to these are people. They're not performers. They're not show animals. These are real people with real life problems outside of wrestling. So, just the way that we communicate, I think that's one of the things that makes this place so special.
I think it's so awesome too so like it's not like you're somebody who like the only person I can think of, lack of better examples, is like a Vince McMahon. Wasn't a true wrestler. Right?
We have to start referring to Triple H.
Well, I can't, because in this incident, Triple H was an actual wrestler. I'm talking like there are probably promotions that talk to the wrestlers like how you are, but they've never been in the ring.
Yeah.
But you come to a promotion here, like Apple City Championship Wrestling, and you have that experience to be able to be like, okay, like, look, the match was awesome, but here's A, B, and C that we can work on. And hey, at the next show, let's try to do this better.
Right.
Like, I feel like a lot of other promoters who maybe have never gotten into the ring, like that's why I brought up that example, who maybe don't have the respect of the wrestlers that they work with. But again, like at the end of the day, you're talking to them like people. You're not talking to them like, hey, this has got to be better for the next show,
Exactly.
and blah, 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 blah. But like, how much pressure? Because it seems like you just love this. Like, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that you absolutely love this. You're obsessed with this. Like, how much pressure is on you the day before a show? Like, take us through that day, the day before show, and the night leading up to and the day of.
So, the difference between the venue we're currently in and Hit Night is a night and day on the pressure that's felt too. So we're shooting a podcast right now, and the show's going to happen in just a few hours. And I'm pretty laid back because we came in here last night, did a full setup. All that work is done. And that's a large portion of the stress and anxiety behind it, is like, all right, we got to get show ready. We got to get everything. We got to make sure everything's working, no issues, iron out all the kinks. Whereas, like, when we go to a venue like Hit Night, we're in the venue at like 3:00, and the doors are open at 7. You got 4 hours. You can have no problems.
One thing
no
goes
bullshit.
wrong.
No problems.
If one thing goes wrong at midnight, you're pushing the doors back a couple minutes, and that's the last thing you want to do.
And that does happen there at times where, we run into something and it delays the start time because it's like, oh, well, we got to iron this out real quick before we're show ready. So, yeah, like here it is more laid back, but that's always home. So we'll deal with the stress on those dates.
Do you like genuinely just love this so much that like is this what you want to do the rest of your life? Like promote?
Absolutely, 100%.
Like when you first when you first started this as a promoter, like your first show, go back to that mindset. Did you think that 2 years later now that you would still have this much enjoyment and this much love for promoting shows?
I wasn't really sure. There were a lot of things that I was sure about at that moment, but then there was a lot of things that I wasn't. And looking back 2 years ago and where things kind of started and where they are now, that I'm like, there's the company's seen a lot of growth over those 2 years, and I don't think we're done growing. I got Hid Night. I see Brookford. Maybe the convention center's next. Who knows? Maybe we'll go to Statesville.
Hold on. Is he throwing out a convention center exclusive here? Is that next year?
Yeah, we'll see.
So one thing I really love about wrestling is the storytelling, the storylines, the creative side of it. How much more fun is it now compared to when you had, like before there was like the storylines that somebody else was making? Now you're kind of in full control. Obviously there's things that get changed and stuff happens in real life that, kind of things have to get, it's like a river, it flows. But how much more enjoyment is it now making storylines and the creative than when you were actually the performer doing it?
Oh, it's way better. And we're going to go back. We're going to keep, this is something that we're going to reiterate several times. This is wrestling for wrestling, or for wrestlers by wrestlers. So I'm sure that the talent enjoy it as well, because oftentimes their opinions or directions that they would like to go are unheard or unfollowed because I'm the promoter and I do what I want. Not here.
Yeah.
So those guys and girls have creative minds or they wouldn't be in this business. So we have discussions amongst us on where we're going and how we're going there. I don't just do it by myself. I do it with the talent because I want them to feel engaged and a part of it.
100%.
If I just wrote everything down on a piece of paper and I come and bring it to you, then you're paid to do a job and you're going to do that job. But if we sit down with a pen and paper together and I write some stuff and I tell you where I want to go and you gave me a roadmap on how to get there, the outcome's going to be so much better because you're going to feel more connected to your work.
And I think a lot of that shows in the product that you guys put out. Like you could tell that there is a sense of freedom here because I've definitely noticed, and again, my first show was in January. I've been watching a lot more independent wrestling since then. You put me on, so I appreciate it. But you could tell that there's a lot more stiffness to some people. Like here, you come here, and it is just a big community.
It is.
The wrestlers, the fans, like nobody thinks that they're all the way up here. They might act it as the character, but as the person, everybody's on the same plane. Like that's the thing that is so cool. Because again, I was not expecting it. I was not expecting any of it. But you guys have opened arms to me, and it's just a huge community here of people who just genuinely love what they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of places you go that aren't near as welcoming. You know what I mean? Like, and I've wrestled on those shows where, like, there's a locker room full of guys who only wrestle for this company or primarily wrestle for this company. And then when you're an outsider and you step into that locker room, it's not always welcoming, and the promoter's not always welcoming, although they had you on the damn show. It's not always like that, So I have been blessed to work with some really incredible talent that they get along, they do great business, and I couldn't ask for more.
Like my favorite part of wrestling is stories, the creative, the characters. I'm a very big, I was always a big movie guy. I was always that's why I knew wrestling was just something for me. Cause again, I didn't know wrestling until I got older. I watched wrestling, but I didn't learn it. I always wanted to do it. Now looking back, it was the best thing I ever didn't do. How many injuries I got now and I didn't even wrestle.
Yeah, right.
But for you, looking back on all these years, is there anything that you would do differently? Knowing what you know now, how you feel now, doing everything you're doing?
Yeah, like looking back and what I would coach anyone younger coming into this that was like, hey, I want to be a wrestler. Like, how can I go about doing that? I would point them to some of the best training facilities that they can go to. And realistically, like we have 3 that are within the Carolinas reach. And some of those training facilities have trained people who are now wrestling for AEW or WWE or NXT. So, training at a place like that has that kind of reputation opposed to like just going and getting in with like your local independent place and training with some, regardless of what people think, training with some guy who may not have the name or credibility or accreditation or to pass that on from a school. I would say, hey, go to this reputable school, go train here, and break into the business the right way under the right minds. I think that's kind of where I fell flat, was like where I jumped into things, opposed to if I had attended one of those, things may have been a little bit different on who I rubbed wrong and all that stuff. So
when you talk about a training school, like maybe there's someone watching this who wants to be a wrestler one day, like what is that? Is it like an actual like training academy that's ran by somebody who's like usually done it or accredited, that like it's a lot more safe than just like going to a barn that has a wrestling ring in it? Like what is entailed in like a wrestling academy?
Yeah, so Firestar Pro Wrestling, the owner of that's LeBron Cazone, and he runs a fantastic training facility in Greensboro, North Carolina. Cozy, don't kill me if I'm wrong. But he has trained some great people. He trained Jackson Drake and Malachi, which is now Javon Evans on NXT.
Yeah.
He came out of that academy. Jackson Drake is a part of the WWE ID program, and he's on the Tubi television show that they're doing. He also trained Griff Garrison, who's doing some Ring of Honor and AEW work. So there are places like that exist. It's just, reaching out to somebody and finding the right spot. AML also runs a training facility in Winston, North Carolina. Where they've got a fantastic coach, and they teach you the fundamentals. They break it down, and they'll teach you like social media and stuff like that as well.
Oh, wow.
So that you're putting your product out there the right way, and how you're representing yourself in the public eye. Those are 2 of the best that I know within the Carolinas.
Can you, from a promoter side, can you see the difference of someone who has worked with a company like the 2 you just mentioned versus somebody who kind of just maybe got into it? Is there a noticeable difference?
So there is a noticeable difference, like right out of the gate, like when you're messing with the ones that are just like graduating from the company, opposed to like someone else. But then when you're messing with someone that just graduated from that company or from those schools, and then you're messing with talent that's been wrestling for 12 plus years, that line's very blurred. You see where the experience of the 12 plus years stands out, even though like them fresh out of the academies, they're solid. There's no training, there's no school for experience. Although they were taught the right things, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get to the levels of other competitors that have also came into things the right way. But there is a noticeable difference in somebody who may have just trained with a company and someone who trained with one of those schools and came out of them.
So I know 2025 is going to be a big year. What's all planned for ACCW 2025? You got the rest of this year. There's the women's tournament going on. Obviously, there was just a title change at the last event going into this event. A big return, surprise return, I guess some would say. So just the last event going into this one was crazy.
Yeah.
What's planned for the rest of the year?
The rest of the year is it's going to be a hell of a ride. We do have the women's tournament. I'm very excited about that. A lot of times these ladies are not given the proper platform to shine. There's a lot of companies that don't run with women's matches at all, or they don't have women's championships. We were able to hold down a solid 2 years of always having a women's match on the card and work with some amazing female talent. So I thought it was the perfect time to give them ladies something to fight for. So I'm very excited about that. In addition to that, we did just crown a new Apple City champion at the last event, Cam Jackson, #1.
Oh my gosh! Can I tell a quick story?
Can.
Bro, he's got like the best the best thing I could say, like the best comparison, he has like that Trick Williams kind of relationship with the crowd, where they're the minute the theme hits, it's crazy. It's just ludicrous. Like, so the first time I came to the show, like it was night was great, it was awesome. All of a sudden, his theme hit, and it felt like we were in a stadium of 10,000 people. Everybody chanting one more time.
Yeah.
He goes back. He comes in again, and they
It's the
laugh.
same energy or
Even
louder.
louder. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Such a deserve, and not only just his relationship with the crowd, but his in-ring ability. I mean, there's a lot of amazing wrestlers on this card, on this entire program that you work with, but just a great guy. Sorry, I had to put that in there.
But now he's faced with a challenge that he's never had to face before.
I know.
His Brad Attitude is now in Apple City Championship Wrestling. A lot of people in this area know about Brad, and for the past 5 years, he's been AML Wrestling's champion, and he's carried their flag on his back, and he's been a really good company guy for them. And now he's in ACCW. This is a guy who was in Florida Championship Wrestling before it was OVW, had a WWE contract, tag team and won tag team titles with Dolph Ziggler. This is a guy that in AML has beat many top names like Dolph Ziggler. He's no joke. He's no slouch. So we're very excited to have him as a part of the team. And Cam Jackson, Mr. Number One, has a hell of a match in front of him tonight.
And then going back, what does the rest of 2025 look? So, like, let me ask you: is it just as simple as this month there's a show, we're gonna figure it out, and then the night after this show we're figuring out the next one? Like, is it that long, or you're doing this like 6 months in advance?
I'm doing this at least 4 months in advance.
Now, like when you say 4 months, is it like a rough idea of what's going to happen? Or these are like you're booking people?
I'm booking people.
That's crazy.
I'm booking people 4 months out. Wow. Some people further than that.
Really?
Yeah.
So I assume like the women's championship, right? Like the tournament.
We had to book an entire year.
That's unbelievable. And like what goes into this? Is it you just talked about before? You work full-time job.
Yep.
You do this once a month, but I mean you're putting more hours into this than anything. You're doing sponsorships.
Yep.
You're doing media like this. Again, appreciate you being on.
This is 24/7.
Yeah. Like literally, like what goes into this?
This is my life. This is everything I do. I mean, I'm walking around every day, all hours of the day, with my cell phone in my hand, and if that's not in my hand, then the computer is, and this is every day. There's real work, and then there's working on your dream, and we're working on a dream.
And is the goal to make this something that you can actually be like, hey, job out there, I don't need to work that anymore?
That would be fantastic, and I get how a lot of people in my position could say that their dream was to be Vince McMahon or Triple H. I'm a realist, like similar to how things ended with me stepping out of wrestling. I'm a realist. My dreams for this is to make it the best that I can, to make sure that when this is over, that I made it better than it was when I started. And I made I made wrestling as a whole better than it was when I got in it. And we're on the way there.
For sure. Why the name Apple City Championship Wrestling?
So Apple City stems from the Alexander County area where the company was founded. Because, they do like Apple festivals and stuff, and they're known for that in that region. So the name stems from where the company was founded.
That's awesome. So, last couple questions here. Do you watch any WWE product? Like, what products are you watching currently?
I'm watching everything.
Really?
I'm watching everything. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a fan of this.
Yeah.
At the heart of it, I'm just as big a fan as anyone else, just a little bit smarter.
Did you become a bigger analyst once you had the promotion compared to when you were wrestling? Because you're probably wrestling to see people who had like different styles than you. Now it's kind of like, okay, what can work, right? Like, what's the difference of looking at it now as a promoter than as a wrestler, like watching a WWE event, for example?
I think the difference now and then is like, before I was breaking down like styles that I appreciated and things that I would like to pick up as an in-ring performer, where it's now like I'm more so paying attention to the stories and characters developed than the moveset that I want to acquire. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm looking at more like the creative side of it, and like, you know, what storylines they're running and what they're doing with character development and stuff.
But genuinely watching everything.
Everything, all of it. WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, NWA, TNA, all of it. New Japan.
How do you
I'm
have
watching
time, dude? You're doing all.
What? I'm recording it and watching it. I'm not watching it, you know, when it's airing. So, you know, I got to catch up when I got to catch up. But as I'm doing work on the laptop over here on my stuff, I'm watching it here. I'm listening to it. I'm listening to the commentary. I'm every bit of it.
So last two things here for you. Overall goal, ACCW, for someone who's never come out. What can you say to someone whose first event it will be before they come through those doors? What can they expect that night, the entire night? Why should they come to Apple City Championship Wrestling?
If you're a wrestling fan, it doesn't matter of what style of wrestling, but if you're a wrestling fan and you walk through the doors of any ACCW event, you're going to know as soon as you come in that it's different from everywhere else. You know, like I said, in the 17 years I worked for companies where you're opening a door and walking out to the ring. There's no entrance set up. There's nothing flashy. There's no lights. They don't care about the production quality. When you come here, you can tell that we care about that as soon as you come in the door. And then when the performers hit the ring, they're going to really give you something to come back for.
And then the absolute last question, and I feel like this can be broken down to two aspects. So how we end every podcast is we ask for the best piece of advice for someone watching. I think you're the perfect person to ask for maybe a wrestler or maybe a promoter out there who's watching that maybe they want to get into this line of work. What's the best piece of advice you can give them? And then we'll go to the life part and I'll answer that question.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Listen, here's the thing. There's so many wrestling companies that are here today and gone tomorrow. This is not cheap work. This is not easy work. And if you're going to do it right, it takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And a lot of people aren't going to give that. So if you're going to half-ass it, then just don't do it. If you're going to close shop when the tax check runs out, don't do it.
You real quick, you said that before. What is that like a? That's like a thing. Like
that
someone's
happens.
taking like
that
a
happens
refund
so
check?
much. People will get a tax refund. They'll go buy them a ring. They'll start them a damn company, and now they're a thing. And that's just, don't do it, okay? Don't do it.
And then for maybe the non-wrestling fan or just someone watching about life in general, what's the best piece of life advice you give to someone watching this right now?
Be better tomorrow than you are today. At everything.
And then finally, to completely end it out, where can people find Apple City Championship Wrestling? How can they support? How can they buy tickets? How can they follow you guys on social media? If you want to plug everybody, all the links will be in the description as well.
Yeah, so you can find Apple City Championship Wrestling on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and online. We're at accwlive.com or at accwlive on all social media.
Boom. And just like that, first off, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
If you haven't, go check out Apple City Championship Wrestling. But most importantly, subscribe here because we're going to try and have as many guests from ACCW as possible. That would be awesome. Yeah, we got to look at this nice banner and everything. You got to be set up over here. But until next time, hit that subscribe button. Follow ACCW. All their events. I'm going to link the website, the social medias down below. Go check them out. Incredible people, incredible events. But until next time, most importantly, lift love, crush hate, and just like that, we out.